so one shy of the sprinkler minimum. So in that situation where you have a 2-bedroom approved property and 15 people unrelated staying in those 2 bedrooms, what?
Bedrooms don't matter to us.
Then it goes to your next category.
It's occupancy. So if it's 15 people, it's one, if it depends on the size of the one family.
But say
If you had-
the family that owns it is a 30-person family, but the 15 people in the place are completely unrelated.
Then it needs to be sprinkled and it's running water.
Once you get to 4
For
people that are not related, you need to sprinkle.
And how many families do you have now where the husband and wife aren't even married? You know, I mean, how does
That's
that,
the point.
That's where the definition of family is
Right.
becoming.
you know, I mean, I
That's
look at
one of the problems we have.
I look at the verse in the Conway Sun, and, you know, Caitlin was born, her parents are John Smith and Betty
Betty Jones.
Jones.
Yeah,
I mean, is that a family?
Well, sometimes they keep their maiden names.
But that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
And so, and family is family in the dwelling unit, not the family that owns it, correct? In other words, you might have a family that owns
In
it,
it,
but.
it's how you, for me, it's how you occupy the building.
So,
So it's who's in the building at the time.
and maybe you can speak to this, but generally, you have a lot of rentals that, you know, that single families or maybe 2 families that are vacationing together rent. That's sort of one class of rental. And then there are the other rentals where it's a large group, whether it's a fraternity or a
I
sports
would say in
team
the valley,
or-
85% of rentals, and not rental houses, but each individual rental, 85% of them violate that.
Because we're not trying to cut back people's ability to rent their home. What we're trying to do is ensure.
And that's why it's really tough. You have to be really
Yeah,
careful
what we're
because
trying
the
to
wording
do is
might.
ensure that there's some way for that to be able to be done in a safe manner, and can be done such that, and to the point around this, it's where the excesses do occur. Not that they do occur, but they do occur. It's not a regular thing, but when they do occur, we need to be able to do something to drop that cork, not to avoid it in the first place, to get people's mindset in a place where they say, this is how I'm supposed to behave. If I behave this way, there's not going to be any issues. You know, who the hell wants issues if they're a landlord or a rental agency or anything? You want something to go smoothly, you just want to get your check and move on. And if you set ground rules that everyone understands that are reasonable, I mean, reasonable from a use perspective, you know, you don't stick 12 people in a single bedroom. I mean, who the hell wants that anyway?
But it somewhat sounds like we already have in place some laws to.
That's Bartlett's falling back
Party
on and
situation.
giving cease and desist on that particular ruling that Jay's talking about. They've already started doing it. The Village of Kearsarge Lighting District, I'm assuming that all that they're almost $200,000 in legal fees defending their rules right now. I guess my 2 cents would be, I believe there should be regulations as a rental agency, but I think it should be a slow process and be very careful. Because you could think you have something right, you could win it, but it could still cost you $100,000 in court. And, you know, what did you win? What did you gain by that?
Yeah, it just, you know, on top of, you know, the problems that we've just been discussing, there's also, you know, we're also trying to protect the town in the same way that we have zoning that limits the amount of construction you can do, the size of your lot, the setbacks, the frontage, et cetera, because we're trying to protect that rural aspect of the town, the type of community we have. And so there's also, you know, part of this is that we want to strike that
Keep it
balance
safe for you.
where we're providing a resource for, you know, for our biggest economy, which is tourism, but at the same time, continuing to keep the town the kind of town that it is, which in turn helps the rentals, because this is this kind of place that brings people here, and if this kind of place changes into something that looks more like a retirement community, it won't be the kind of place that brings people here anymore. You know,
I think there's two main things that anybody around here needs to do if they're gonna make regulations. And then after that, everything turns gray. And the two thing is, I like the fact that you have an application process, because I don't think that anybody would be able to beat that in court, that the town requires you to notify them that you're renting. But on that, I wouldn't limit it to short-term rentals. Whatever you're doing here, I would make it for rentals in general in town. Because whatever rules you're making for short-term rentals, long-term rentals are gonna have no problem following those. So don't discriminate. Call it rentals, and if you're not occupying that unit yourself and you're renting it, these rules go for everybody. And I don't see any wise reason a person who rents long-term would be opposed to any of these things. It's not really gonna affect that. And then that eliminates that's some of the court cases going on around the state right now. That's gonna eliminate that possibility. And number two, I think when you have your application, instead of having like a lot of your restrictions on your policy, put them in the application instead. Because then you're getting somebody to sign off on it, and I think it would be harder for somebody to try to go litigate an application in court than it would be your policy in general.
Good comments.
So Dick brought up a good point, and I actually thought of this the other day and having some conversation with the Violet Fire Chief on it. Who's to say somebody wanted to do a short-term rental, they can't call it customary home occupation? And then
They would have to occupy it, but how many days a year would they have to occupy it?
just
The bed
like,
and breakfast, the owner is supposed to be in residence.
Every single day,
In the building.
24 hours a day?
by the zoning.
That's why their fire
If they have a rental,
are
they need
less
to be-
stringent because they're supposed to be there to lead the people out
that's
or,
required.
direct them in an emergency. So it isn't, they don't have
That's
the
not in our
same
code.
pull stations and
Yeah.
egress that a rooming and lodging would.
And that goes, that pull station you talk about, like, I do know one bed and breakfast that has pull stations attached to their existing smoke detectors. And I know it's an old bed and breakfast, I think, so it's probably okay if it's not sprinkled. The difficult, I gotta find out from NFPA when the code of the day was on that sprinkling thing, because, it's, for another example, when I was talking to the fire marshal the other day about this one property that I had an issue with Boy Scout troop, and I got a whole file on it, with some complaints and some emails back and forth.
Damn Boy Scouts.
And I explained the whole thing to the fire marshal, and I said, what do I do? You're my boss. You're the AHJ. I'm a local AHJ. He's basically my boss, other than Dick. I said, what do I do? You gonna back me up on it? And I asked him 4 or 5 times in the course of an hour discussion, and he really couldn't answer me.
I'm sure that's the last thing he'd want his name in the paper.
Well, it's, because like Keith was saying, I've got a letter here, I think I showed it to you guys when I was here last year. The letter that I sent the fire marshal a year ago, and then he responded, and there's a whole bunch of lawyer battles back and forth. And he gave me some examples where they've lost every time.
And do they use tents on
Huh?
the property, or are they in the building, the Boy Scouts?
No, it was just in the building.
Would it make a difference?
And then, wasn't long after there, I saw a bunch of cars in the driveway with all different license plates on them. And then I saw, I can't prove it, but I saw a sign that appeared to be a Reach the Beach sign. So I'm pretty sure it was a
Yeah.
group from Reach the Beach that came up here and stayed and
Yeah.
did their Reach the Beach thing.
Cool.
So that doesn't mean a 1 and 2 family.
That's what 17 sisters.
Huh?
That's what 17 sisters.
But that was a bed and breakfast, been what, at least, I worked on that as an apprentice over 30 years ago, 34, 35 years ago, when Peter Hill had it. The place you're talking
Yeah.
about. I think I can't remember how many suites there were.
11.
The guy, when they rebuilt it, it's pretty dang safe. I mean, he done a good job. It's got egress windows, it's got smoke detection up to snuff. But it's, like I asked the fire marshal, what do I do? Do I make a big deal out of it? Do I let it slide?
But that should be sprinkled then, with that many rooms.
Well,
But it's not rooms, it's how you occupy the building.
Yeah.
You can have 47 bedrooms in it if you want, by my code. You just can only put so many people in it.
See, my complaint is, because I keep looking at Tyrol with those postage stamp lots up there. Small houses, small septics. Someday, we're gonna have an issue up there. I mean, it's all on ledge. You've got well, septic. And eventually, if those units are, you have large groups using them, they're using the washing machines, and the systems start failing, what's gonna happen to the houses around the ones that are causing the problem? I mean, there's lots of very small. ZBA,
And
we
once your
have one
wells
up
are
there, the lot
polluted, there's
just
no good
I mean,
answer on
you've
that.
got, I guess you've already got some enforcement there, the selectmen's got some enforcement if they knew a house was being,
water contamination.
if they put 8 bedrooms in a house, if
Oh,
it's
we-
got a 2-bedroom septic, then they can,
well, we know of one up there, there's a
Right.
two-bedroom septic.
But if
it's
you have a
house.
two-bedroom and people are putting 15 people into the
But it's
two
legally
bedroom.
allowed if they're all related. That's the catch.
well,
For a fire.
maybe for my code, but it might not be for DES's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the problem is you're talking about short-term rental.
Yeah, by the time you know
By
it.
the time you figure out, you
No,
know,
this is
collected all the
residential.
licenses.
This
and-
goes for all of us.
Right.
You can't have more than 4 people, no family members stay at your house.
I don't ever have one.
I'm just saying, that's
I
the
don't like
law.
my family.
It's not just
I'm gonna
renters.
go out
it's
4
law.
family members.
The only other item I've had, because I'm sure you guys don't want to stay here all night, if, let's say, there's 100 rentals that have to be inspected, that's about 8 hours a week of extra work. So basically creating a part-time job of some sort, you know. Not that any of us can't do something, but we are creating a.
Make sure your application
Yeah,
We
when-
fees
can
cover
easily
that.
spend 4 hours on one inspection.
Yeah, when I asked Kevin, he said he figured it was probably about 3 hours on average,
You
maybe,
could spend 4 hours if you have to do some preliminary code review.
on average.
And then you go do the inspection, you come back, and then you do
Right.
some paperwork. And if you do a follow-up, you always do follow-ups, but you can kill, you might as well figure 4 hours per inspection. So yeah, Kevin's in the
We're
ballpark.
gonna charge a commensurate fee, that's all.
And me and Kevin had talked a lot, and I asked him if he's coming tonight, and he said he couldn't. And me and him have been in pretty good agreement with how we interpretate things.
Yeah,
and how we figure out-
I think, and we did talk to Kevin, and I think, from my perspective, it would be critical. And your point around how you set up the application is probably as important as anything, because you're getting somebody to
That's what they
sign
say,
off on
yeah.
something that says that, yeah, I agreed to this.
And then you don't have to talk about maximum occupancy because they're agreeing to it right
Well,
there.
you have to, in your code, you have to specify what you're requiring. So,
Maximum occupancy should not violate RSA's.
well,
blah,
but
blah,
yeah,
blah,
we have to
blah,
figure
blah,
out
blah.
some, we have to figure out some way
Yeah.
to get that put all together.
My only other thing, I mean, I think what you guys, a lot of what you guys have done is great. Go slow with it, start simple and easy. You can always build on it later. I mean, I look at when you guys did the site disturbance, the very first site disturbance ordinance, it was like immediately out of the gate, it was so restrictive, and then it ended up getting changed a little bit. I think
We're not North Conway, we're not part of it, we're not
keep
Laconia,
it simple,
Jackson.
keep it basic, and we can always build on
Self-police.
it as we figure it out,
Yeah, we-
as the fire marshal figures out stuff, I think, but I just don't, I wanted to make sure I talked to you, because I didn't want you to put something in there that contradicted, you know, you guys say, yeah, well, you told me I could advertise this, and that's what we're doing, and then I get up there and it contradicts everything that I'm gonna tell them.
Yeah.
And really, you know, the the focus of this is more that registration application process. And then if the town feels it needs to do something further at a future date, we're in a much better position.
What
at
a
that
huge
point.
benefit for the fire department in general, especially if you include all rentals, that the fire department now knows which houses are occupied, which houses are rentals.
And having a contact name that you have in your file, if somebody's out of sorts, either the police or the fire can contact that person and say, hey, we got a problem here. I think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a good deal.
I guess I would confirm what Jay said, is do something, but go slow. You can always add on to it, because I don't think North Conway is gonna be ready to do this on their next election. They're gonna have way too many
Right.
issues.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna be the first, be careful.
We're going to keep it simple.
If you're gonna be the first, be
I think we're
careful.
trying to keep it simple.
And
Yeah.
I need to back up with the fire marshal's office, because I don't wanna put the town in a position where I do my own thing, or the town, we do our own thing, and then you get in a jam,
Yep.
it's yours.
Yep.
Whereas when I rely on the fire marshal's office, because this is what the fire marshal says,
Yep.
then I can be like, it's not me, it's the
Yep.
fire marshal's office.
Just do what they
And I don't have a lot of backup right now, because they don't even know how to figure out the occupancy on this. And make it fair, and make it.
and make it fit.
And make it
Jeez.
fit, and make it, I don't know,
Yeah.
and it's gonna take a while.
I mean,
So
it
it's-
seems to me, and this is probably going way deep, but septic is based on bedrooms. There must be, at some point along the line, some number of people per bedroom in the septic that those number of people would use, that was the basis for number of bedrooms for
Well,
septic.
you're not legally allowed to advertise it for more bedrooms than the town approves it for. So if it's a
No,
three
I'm
bedroom,
just-
and I have these 2 bonus rooms that I need, I can't call it 5 bedrooms.
Right. No, I'm just saying, I'm not
That's
talking
what you
about, I'm not talking about rental or short-term rental or anything. I'm just saying that what Jay has said is that, we can limit the number of bedrooms based on a septic application and approval, but we really can't limit the number of people other than family definition.
Unless you fall back on that RSA.
But way back when, the septic stuff was being designed and figured out, there must have been some number of people per bedroom and the amount of water being used that
Yeah, I don't know. how
number of
they-
bedrooms is based on. And so really the law ought to go back to,
Plumbing code.
It's what?
Yeah, it could be in, I'm gonna check it could be in the
Cause
plumbing.
I
the
felt,
law ought to go back to number of
Which
people,
that-
not
that-
number of
I'm pretty
bedrooms
sure.
in the house.
Okay, my question
They
is,
how many people.
how many people can you put in a house? Septic, gallons per day, number of bedrooms, square footage. They're all questions I have. So I don't know, but that's what I'm gonna look at.
isn't that the answer
is
to tell me, is when they calculate bedrooms, they take a gallon per day per person
I
somehow,
think so,
and come up with
yeah.
a calculation per bedroom, so
Or
there's
something like the,
That'd be a question.
But how many gallons
Yeah.
per bedroom and how many people equal
the
that
church,
number?
say, that has a preschool in it, with how many students and how big does that septic system have to be
Yeah.
to accommodate?
Yeah, I think those are guidelines too, I don't know if they're enforceable things,
Well,
right? Because like,
I think
can you
there's
enforce that
something
in
in there,
residential house?
someplace,
I don't know.
somebody figured it out.
Stick with stuff you
But
can.
bedrooms don't use septic, people
Yeah.
use septic. And so somewhere along the line, that number of bedrooms must be based on
Well,
some number of
Certain
people.
occupancy level of
Keith
house.
Keith made a really good point to me. Just by having the registration and a few guidelines, even if that occupant load, advertising load, whatever, wasn't there, I think you were saying
You start getting-
that would cut down on a lot.
It'll be a good learning process, because you're gonna say, okay, how many people came forward and filled out these applications? Oh, 50, well, we know there's 70. You know, and I think that's why I said go slow and do some first steps, and then you can always add to things later. And the maximum occupancy is a tough one, like everybody's talking about that, there's no answer. Just like there's no answer to trash removal as far as rentals go in the valley. That's why I have so many bears in my house. but that's another story. But the easiest thing for you to fall back on the occupancy is you gotta look the other way on a 2, 3, 4 bedroom. The only thing I think you can legally fall back on and enforce right now is that RSA that if you go to 15 people, you're sprinklered. So that's kinda gotta be your number without saying anything to anybody. You put it on your application process that you gotta follow these 2 RSAs, or all RSAs, but specifically point them out, and you're capping at 15 now. Right there, you got immediately capping at 15 and legally capping it at 15.
And then there's always, you can take that sheet I handed around to you guys, we could always attach that to the application process. At least then we can be like, hey, we told you, we gave it to you, it's right there. I highlighted it so you can see the differences, but it's right there. If you go over this occupant load, it needs to be sprinkled. If you go over this occupant load, it's a hotel. And it needs to be sprinkled, it needs to be this, 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 and this.
Because you could fall back, it could be 4 people and they've gone over occupancy. And I just think you're gonna have a lot of options for litigation when you start doing that, because there's no case that you can go back on and say, well, this is happening here, they did this and this, they won this in Supreme Court, or like, how do you, I think it's very difficult to
And the
define.
question is, are we just selectively
That's what I
following the
mean.
RSAs to get to your up to 3 unrelated people in your house, which would totally shut down STRs entirely?
Well, yes and no. Yes and no, because it depends on that family definition.
Depends
Well,
on.
no, it says for your dwelling, you can only have up to 3 unrelated people in your
One.
home.
One family.
Any of us.
In your home.
Any of us. I
No,
rent- I
right,
rent
so
to
in your
my home
home,
right
so
now.
if it's my home and I'm renting it as a short-term rental, I'm not there, that means I can only rent it to 3 people.
No, it's whoever the renter,
It's
plus
one-
3
Well,
more people.
that's how I read this.
The occupancy is based on one family, not the family that owns it.
Okay,
One family
All right.
and 3 outside.
Plus 3
So
people.
you could rent Dick's house as a short-term rental. It could be you, your wife, your 2 kids, or your 6 kids,
right.
and 3
So
outside.
3 outside.
As long as you don't get to over
And if you
15.
hit, don't get 15, you're
As long as you stay
outside,
under
right?
As long as you stay under 15.
No,
So I think.
as long as the 3 outsiders doesn't go over.
Right. If my family,
The up to 16 is based on transient stuff, like bed and breakfasts, where, you know, large groups.
right, so if you're like my brother-in-law and he has 18 brothers and
So
sisters.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of you decide to go with a house in Bartlett and have a bachelor party because Dick's getting married again. 6 of you don't meet the definition of a 1 and 2 family dwelling.
So it could be a 15-bedroom house, you can't rent it.
So what does this all say? It says to me, and I've been listening to you, and
This is my first public comment. I've stayed out of all of this.
Well-
Most of my rentals are in North Carolina. I had 2 or 3 in Jackson, and I've stayed out of every single thing. And I'm just watching what people are doing. I'm not worried about it. It's not going to affect what I do. I'm pretty sure that it's actually going to help me when this goes into place.
well, here's my point, and I think it's very, very tough to fit this whole thing into very, a small container. We don't know. And so what I would suggest that we do is we set some guidelines and we see how they work. If they don't
Yes,
work, we set some more guidelines. And if they don't work, we set some more guidelines. But to try to come up right now with the definition of, well, you can only have 2 people and 2 kids and whatever. And by the way, if you're not married and you have 2 kids, that doesn't fit the, it's just too complicated.
Yep.
I think we need to make it simple. We need to make it understandable. I think, we build on the guidelines, we see what works. We don't make a problem right off the start if there is no problem. So, and that's not my real estate person talking, that's my.
One of the lucky things I feel we have in Jackson, almost all of the houses I see that are being rented out, advertised, and you're always gonna have an issue somewhere. You're always gonna find smoke detectors that aren't where they need to be. There's always gonna be issues that pop up. But most of what I'm seeing that I look at, that I think are short-term rentals, I look at them and I say to myself, is this safe? This house safe? Can you get out of it? Is the egress okay? almost every time I look at it and say, man, it might not meet the code, but it's a pretty damn safe house. I hear other fire chiefs in our meetings we have, our Mount Washington Valley Fire Chiefs Association meetings, and I hear their stories of where they're seeing people in the basements with no windows, and issues, and we don't have those issues like North Collins got, or Wakefield's got. I just don't, I'm not, but Tommy said, yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of issues. Are there issues? Yeah. Is there gonna be issues no matter what we do? Yeah. But I don't see a lot of major issues, so.
Well, I think we
Dick,
have,
it's hat time, Dick.
we have.
Well, I just want to say, I think we're back to what we're trying to do is be proactive. I think the application is the way to go. I think a little research on loading is in order, because I
think the septic
any
is a
of
big one.
those
The big one.
answers.
Yeah, I'm gonna check on the plumbing code.
But I agree with you, there should be something in septic or,
then if you're gonna
gallons
enforce it
per
on
day.
rentals, you gotta enforce it on private
Yeah.
businesses too.
but I think the application, and we just try to get the words for life safety.
Yeah.
We're gonna look at life safety.
Yeah, that's the key
That's
word.
a principle.
See,
Getting the applications is gonna be a
Egress,
huge data gathering. You're gonna now gain so much information
check
on what's
fireplaces
actually going on
for, you
in
know,
the town.
non-combustible hearth and, you know, it just, you know what you're looking at. But if we just stick to life safety, I don't think we're gonna be in a lot of trouble. I don't think we'll have trouble enforcing
Okay, so I think we've got a pretty good platform here to work from. The next steps would be for us to do a public hearing and get additional input.
it. Wasn't this a public hearing?
No, this is not a public hearing. The intent, I guess, tonight was to get some input from our professional staff.
Do we have time for another regular meeting prior? Because I think we ought to pass this before Peter Malia.
Okay.
Before we take it to a public hearing, I think we ought to know better what.
We ought to come up with an application too. I think, having an application that, maybe Peter would write it up, I don't know. or-
What's our timing though? Thinking through on this, we gotta get this all done.
Keene has
Uh,
applications.
We need to
We
have
have
this
to have it in
done.
order by February something.
Get the
Doesn't seem like much
application,
time.
maybe-
We don't have a heck of a lot of time to let this keep on running this 2 weeks and 4 weeks and 6 weeks out in between half efforts. So, and I would like to get some public input. I appreciate your input, but I'm sure there are other folks that are out there who have, said we're not doing a public hearing. We would like to get input. We'd like to find out what other things.
I'm just giving you my 2 cents from what
Yeah,
I've seen.
no, that's fine. We appreciate that.
I've seen the lawsuits,
And-
I've seen what's working,
And
what's not.
I told Keith when I met with him the other day, I'm like, you really should go to the meeting and
Yeah.
at least give him the massage
And to
thing.
Chris's point, last meeting and with this thing here, there are folks who have other perspectives and other opinions, they hold them dearly. And that's from doing nothing to, we should shut them down entirely. We have folks in town who are residents who would like to say, no, if you have a home in a rural residential district, it should just be totally prohibited. Whether that's a good view or a bad, from do nothing to prohibit it entirely, are pretty much a spectrum the gamut. And I don't think we're in either place. So we need to find that middle ground that we're happy with, that serves our purpose, serves the community properly, and there's probably some other things. Your perspective is wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate it. And Kevin gave us some good input, and I think there's other folks who are going to be able to give us additional input that'll help us form what we're doing here. I guess the question I have is, do we need to pass something first, or do we have a public hearing to get input before we do, and pass it by Peter?
I know in the school board, we have our public hearings first.
That's what I would do, and I'd want to show that application, or at least a draft of it.
Right, well, I believe the way it works is you bring a draft to the public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if there are any substantial changes to that draft, whether based on comments in the public hearing
Yeah,
or anything else, then there needs to be another public hearing.
Right,
for the
right,
revised
right.
version. So we need to come up with something to bring to a public hearing, and then leave time for a second public hearing if necessary. And this is where Sarah really comes in handy to give us
Yeah,
these dates.
I guess my question would be, is it more like a public hearing where we're trying to, say, here's what we propose, and we're going, this is more formal versus
A listening post. type
versus
thing.
a community input opportunity, which might be not a public hearing.
Right, no, we have to do that.
We call it a listening post when we do
Well,
that.
we call it what you want, but we have to call it,
Yeah.
we have to call it a public hearing, we have to post it and all that nonsense, and say, we want to hear from everybody before we put this in a proposal form, before we go before formal public. I'm wondering if that's a benefit, or if it ends up screwing us time-wise.
If you really want to put something in
For this year,
this
yeah.
year,
that's-
you're probably right. That's going to slow you way down, and it's not going to happen.
So that's the two things that are I'm fighting with in my own head. Which is a better way to go?
But I think we're looking at Airbnbs, what Keith does is different, because he's there to supervise those properties, like a lot of different companies. You see a big difference between when there's somebody renting it and physically going there versus an Airbnb.
Well, I have all my stuff's on Airbnb, all my stuff's on HomeAway.
Yeah.
I'm just a
Yeah.
local
Yeah.
guy who's here, and one of the comment on you said you were going to require having a local person.
Right.
That's great. Have that local person have to sign off on that application too, though. Don't let the homeowner just put a name down. Have that person have to sign this too, saying, okay, yeah, I'll take responsibility to make sure these follow these rules.
Maybe,
What do you think, guys?
I think we got some place today.
Yeah, but then we have to draft something to present to the public.
All right, so what,
you want to schedule another work
we
session?
need to schedule another work session in order to accomplish the objective, and then go to a public hearing?
In the worst month of the year.
Yeah.
Let's have it Thanksgiving.
We
That's
could
the
do
perfect
a
time.
work session and then have a public hearing at our next scheduled meeting.
Do that.
That way we wouldn't stretch it
I'm
out.
not trying to get you guys to spend more time here than we have to. I'm just trying to be practical here. What can we do to move this forward in a way that's going to be time sensitive to what we need to do to get this in before the electorate in March?
Well, we could tentatively schedule a work session. You could check with Sarah to see if that's necessary timing wise. And if it is, then we go ahead with it. If not, then we try to finalize a draft at the next regular meeting and then schedule a public hearing after that.
I can find out what our timeline is for having things ready for town meeting.
That'd
I
be
think
good.
the last,
The second meeting must be in like January or
I
something.
think
thought it
January
was
is kind of like our
the
last.
first week of February.
February, yeah.
It says someplace up there.
And I do want to check the plumbing code, 'cause that could be,
All right, so we need another work session then? I'm hearing correctly?
Just take that home.
Oh, yeah, I'm going, no, that's not enough. Yes, thank you.
Well, again, maybe we tentatively schedule one and then determine whether in fact we need it.
All right.
And then go ahead with it.
Tentatively scheduled for when, guys? Got a calendar?
2 weeks.
2 weeks? That's the 28th?
That's Thanksgiving.
That's Thanksgiving.
That's what I said, Thanksgiving. Everybody's around.
Bring your turkey.
He says, I will be here. You can have
I said, all these people coming to my house, but they're all family.
Oh,
Don't
We're
let them,
checking.
don't let them pee. Don't let them pee.
Wait a minute. There's an address, I'm right here.
Do you want me to hang around for capital improvement?
I think we're gonna, do you have a lot to talk about, or can we defer that?
We'll be good for that, but I don't think we have to do that tonight.
All right.
I'll have it more
Good call.
concise.
I'm going to defer that part of the program. I think that's our update, is that we're going to defer to the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't make motions, Dick does.
Our next
Oh, I was
meeting.
ready to second it.
You would,
We're still trying to.
no, you
we're still
always make
trying
a
to
motion.
establish
I quickly second
A
it.
work session.
When I put my hat on, that's
So,
usually a
are we
motion.
okay?
Time to leave. Motion to leave.
Are we okay with a meeting on the 5th, and then a work session on the 5th if we need to, and then a meeting on the 12th?
Our next meeting's at 12.
2 weeks is Thanksgiving.
12th is
I
December,
know, it doesn't even.
because November's already.
Christmas
Thanks for your
is coming
time.
right
I'll
up.
try to come meet you.
Thanks for your input, we appreciate it.
Yep, Keith Brackett.
All in favor? Aye. All rise.
All right, 5th, we're gonna have a 5th work session then? We agree with that? Okay, and tentatively, and then 12 for that, okay.
Thank you.
I'll make a
Motion, I heard motions.
I'll make a motion.
Motion second?
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
By the way, I got sworn.
This is the first time,
Up discussion.
I was sworn.
You're sworn, oh, then please, before we finish, I need to recognize our new member, David Campbell. Thank you. Thank you.
He told you I called him, didn't I? Yes.
All right, now that we had discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Done, thank you.